Okay.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Herold here on Badlands Media. I am your host, John Herold. Hope you guys had a great weekend and are having a good week. Monday so far. It's Happy Gart Week, guys. Happy Gart Week. Can't believe it. I'll be leaving for Deadwood here in just a couple days. It's pretty exciting stuff. I hope you guys all got your virtual ticket because it's the last week to do so. Conference starts on Thursday, and I think Brian and I are going to be golfing either Wednesday or for sure probably Thursday morning, and we'll be posting some of that golf shenanigans to that Telegram chat. So make sure you guys get your tickets if you want to check out some of that along with all the other content. Already kind of a spicy news day with what Trump did this morning at the White House. We'll talk about that. He has taken over Washington, D.C., as he should. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. How's the chat doing? DC is about to receive its long overdue enema. I agree with that one, Buck Wayne. Quite species, says Bravest. Yeah, so we'll get a quick word from our sponsor today's show, and then we'll get right into it. And we got Rise Attire sponsoring today's show.
Howdy, Badlanders. Looking for something new to grab from your friends at Badlands Media and Rise Attire? Summertime is here. We got you covered. All new tank tops for men and women, featuring new iterations of the Devolution design in black, red, white, and even blue and green digital camo. Sick. We got them for Psywar and Clown World, too. How about these bad boys? Psywar, Clown World, and Devolution beach towels to help you spark up a conversation with your new best friend or future spouse at the pool. And by popular demand, we've got all new athletic women's leggings that'll have you red-pilling all the ladies in your Pilates class, whether they like it or not. Too bad. This is Badlands, baby, and we're strapped. Get some and support the new media parallel economy as much as fucking possible at badlandsmedia.tv/rise.
Thank you to Rise Attire for your good work. And they're going to be at GART. So if you're going to be there, they're going to have some of the merch there as well. Yeah, I know Y Chromes is live. We'll be sending you guys over there after this show is done. But I don't blame you for wanting to go hang out with those guys instead of watching the show. No biggie. Yeah, Eleanor in the chat says, hate that summer's about over. My kids start school Thursday. It's nuts. Tuesday, so tomorrow they have their back to school supply drop off thing. Take the kids in, they each go to the classroom, they drop off their backpacks and all their gear and whatnot. And then Thursday, yeah, they start school up. It's insane. Am I live yet? Am I live on Rumble? Okay, I am, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Summer went by super fast. A little too fast, if you ask me. But I am excited because it's GART week. And that kind of marks the end of summer. Although next year we're going to do GART more in the middle of summer. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about what's going on. So no update on the Doge website. Not really surprised there. Probably won't happen till end of August. But today was Liberation Day in DC. We are taking our capital back, according to Donald Trump. That was at 7:05 this morning, my time. And then shortly thereafter that, 6 minutes later, he says, Washington, D.C. will be liberated today. Crime, savagery, filth, and scum will disappear. I will make our capital great again. The days of ruthlessly killing or hurting innocent people are over. I quickly fixed the border. 0 illegals in the last 3 months. D.C. is next. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President DJT. And yeah, on the presidential website, there are 2 new things, and they both have to do with what he did this morning. Declaring a crime emergency in the District of Columbia and restoring law and order in the District of Columbia. So this one's an actual executive order declaring the crime emergency, saying how crime is out of control, all these things. The leftists are saying that why Trump is doing this for, he's just being a dictator. Crime is at a all-time low. I actually think it was Ken Delinian who posted that, which makes it even more interesting because he's like the Fusion GPS Fusion Ken. And he's the guy who, this last week, Patel fired that FBI guy. I can't remember his name now. But afterwards, he went and leaked his letter to this guy, Fusion Ken. Yeah, President Trump announces he is seizing control of DC's police force as he rolls out a series of false and misleading claims about crime in the city, which is actually at historic lows. These people are just insane with their propaganda. But yeah, this is what he actually did. Let's take a listen.
And we're here for a very serious purpose, Something's out of control, but we're going to put it in control very quickly like we did on the southern border. I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse.
Man, I haven't heard the word bedlam used in a while. That's a great use for it, too. Bedlam and squalor. That should be like a name of a band or something.
This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening, and they've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly.
So yeah, pulling in the National Guard. I just want to point out, the last time that Trump actually called in the National Guard to restore law and order in Washington, D.C., was after the famous St. John's Church walk in June of 2020. And they even used the language in the DOJ when they came out describing this letter from Attorney General Bill Barr to DC Mayor Muriel Bowser. This is back in June of 2020. She says, Trump's administration's restoration of law and order to the district. So this is another kind of weird rerun. Obviously, at the time, this was under the George Floyd protests and the riots and whatnot. But it's happening again now. Similar thing. And I've written about in my series, essentially militarizing DC and getting the military involved in DC. Back then, it was to surveil and justify surveillance of Antifa and these protests, because they started getting the military heavily involved domestically in those protests. And I wonder if we're getting some sort of surveillance and whatnot now having to do with, maybe some of these indictments. A lot of people are pretty excited because Washington, D.C. has the National Guard there, and we're told that indictments are coming. We have no idea of the time frame of the indictments, by the way, but it is interesting. Ricky Irish in the chat says, and I thought this was a interesting comment, John, have Grok tell you what this act in D.C. does for the Trump admin in terms of access to Metro D.C. databases and surveillance footage. The doors open to J6 and pipe bomb truth. Now, I like that comment, and I like that thought, that line of thinking, but I also imagine that like the FBI, NSA, any of those agencies, they would already have access to that stuff if they wanted it. But I like where your head's at. I like that line of thought. Now, this could just be what Trump is doing here. This could actually just be about cleaning up the crime in DC. There may not be other hidden agenda here. It may not be to like keep the shitty city, I guess, the city on lockdown because of something to do with the Rico Grande case. And they don't want people that they're going to be arresting leaving. Like, there's a lot of conspiracy theories flown around, and I love them. I do a show every Monday night, Baseless Conspiracies. I love the conspiracy theories too. But also on the flip side, this may just be about actually getting rid of crime and doing this here and he said he might do it in DC. Actually, I might have a clip of that. Trump. I think he said Chicago. Yeah, here's the other clip.
And we're going to have the same thing here. But then I'm going to look at New York in a little while. Let's do this. Let's do this together. Let's see. It's going to go pretty quickly. And if we need to, we're going to do the same thing in Chicago, which is a disaster. We have a mayor there who's totally incompetent. He's an incompetent man. And we have an incompetent governor there. Pritzker's an incompetent. His family threw him out of the business, and he ran for governor. And now I understand he wants to be president. But I noticed he lost a little weight, so maybe he has a chance. You know, you never know what happens. But Pritzker's a gross
Everybody knows fatties can't be president, right?
incompetent guy, thrown out of the family business. But when I look at Chicago and I look at LA, if we didn't go to LA 3 months ago, LA would be burning like the part that didn't burn. If he would have allowed the water to come down, which I told him about in my first term, I said, you're going to have problems. Let it come down. We actually sent in our military to have the water come down into LA. They still didn't want it to come down after the fires. But that was it. We have it coming down. But hopefully LA is watching. That mayor also. The city's burning.
So multiple cities potentially on deck here. And I think it's such a good move. Now let's just put the conspiracy theories aside and talk about it and what they're saying at face value here. That the crime is out of control in these Democrat-run cities. And so I'm not putting up with the politics anymore. I don't need to worry about my image and worry about getting elected like he did in 2020 with the DC or the Summer of Love. I'm just going to actually come in here and show your citizens in these deep blue states what actually happens when you clean up the crime. And doing this now, I think is interesting. He's not only cleaning up the census and he's getting rid of illegal aliens, and there is some small, subtle movements towards fixing our elections. I don't think we're there yet, but he's piece by piece taking away their election fraud apparatus. Again, not actually going after the machines, which makes a lot of the other stuff irrelevant, but he's piece by piece taking away a lot of their election fraud apparatus. And then he's going in here and he's showing the people like why they should no longer be voting for Democrats in the first place. Because these big cities, these deep blue cities with all this crime, it doesn't have to be that way. And Trump is essentially going to prove that. He's going to prove it in DC. Then if he does it in New York, if he does it in Chicago, if he does it in all these other deep blue states and cities, he's going to show people like it doesn't have to be this way. It's only this way because of your corrupt and inept blue government. So I think it's interesting. There's a lot more here than just the surface level. We're bringing in the DC national, like this. There's ramifications for this that extend to our elections, and if we ever have free and fair elections again, it's great. It's great stuff. What else here? Any other comments, guys, on Detroit's another good city? Yep. National Guard in place for getting off the central bank and getting rid of the Fed and IRS. That's a possibility. I don't know. There could be ulterior motives here for the National Guard being called into place. It also could just be to actually clean up crime. Based on how he did this, he has 30 days to use the Guard. And then after that, if they want to be extended, I think it's up to, I believe it's up to Congress to extend it. I could be mistaken on that. I thought I had an article on that somewhere. Maybe I don't. Oh yeah, right here. This emergency control is set to expire after a maximum of 30 days, according to the statute. That can be extended, but only if Congress passes a law authorizing it. So it's 30 days. And do we trust that Congress is going to be the ones to actually extend this? I'm skeptical. So it's that kind of stuff that makes me feel like it's probably not, for some bigger Rico Grande type situation or for shutting down the Fed. It could be. I hope it is. but it's probably just literally cleaning up the streets, which is something that he's going to want to do at some point anyway. All of Minnesota, yep. Minneapolis, that's another good one. Yeah, a lot of people want it to be that maybe it's getting ready to hit the fan and the National Guard is there to protect DC. Could be too. We shall see. We got 30 days to figure out what is actually going on here. Some people are drawing attention to this too. In the wake of the National Guard being called in, dozens have been injured after explosion at U.S. Steel Clearton Coke Works plant. Now, was this a deep state move to counter Trump calling in the National Guard? I doubt it, but it could be. Dozens of people have been injured following an explosion at this steel plant in Pennsylvania. Dispatchers confirm multiple people have been injured. The extent of those injuries are unknown. A time lapse of the Breath Project captured the moment of the explosion happened in the black smoke that followed. Did I miss it? It's kind of a... Oh, yeah, there it is. I was like waiting for the flames to come out, and I didn't see it, but you can see right there. It's pretty big explosion. And Liberty Line in the chat says, oh, there's one confirmed dead. Second explosion confirmed. Let's check that out. Let me just mute this because it's kind of loud. Oh, except that maybe they don't show another explosion. But yeah, obviously prayers for those involved there. Phil Scarborough in the chat says, what about the DC court docs that got hacked? I don't know if I saw that. I had my kids this weekend and we were busy playing around outside, doing all sorts of stuff. So I may have missed some news from the weekend. Phil, you should post that link in the chat. Yes, maybe this is a false flag, maybe not. Richard Rohr, John, he's not going to just announce, hey, it's martial law season, treason arrests are happening. Just stay out of the way. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Actually, man, I feel like he would announce that. Why wouldn't he? If it gets to that point, why would he not do that? But yeah, Phil, post that in the chat. Federal court filing system hit in sweeping hack. You know what? I'm just going to search that quick. Was it Pacer? Because I use Pacer all the time. Oh, yeah. Holy cow. Federal court filing system hit in sweeping attack or sweeping hack. The identities of confidential court informants are feared compromised in a series of breaches across multiple U.S. states. The electronic case filing system used by the federal judiciary has been breached in a sweeping cyber intrusion that is believed to have exposed sensitive court data across multiple states. The hack, which has not been previously reported, is feared to have compromised the identities of CIs. The Administrative Office of the U.S. Courts, which manages the federal court filing system, first determined how serious the issue was around July 4th. But the office, along with the Justice Department and individual district courts around the country, are still trying to determine the full extent of the incident. That is interesting. I wonder who they're going to blame for the hack. Richard Ward again responds, so real life takes precedent here, John. He can't because they'll burn it down. Well, then he doesn't have as much control as we all think he does he? At some point, he's going to announce like all this shit. Like it's going to be difficult, I think, for him to get away with like doing something like actual martial law without publicly disclosing not only doing it, but why he's doing it. And I believe that he will do it. This is what Kash Patel said when he took the mic this morning. I thought this was pretty good.
Mr. President, the following is what happens when you let good cops be cops. And I just want to highlight that before I get into Northern Virginia. This year alone, under President Trump's administration, we've had over 4,000 child victims identified and found. That's a 33% increase from the same time period last year. 33% increase. We've had a seizure of 1,500 kilograms of fentanyl up to this date. That is a 25% increase since the same time period last year. And just to put it in perspective, 1,500 kilograms of fentanyl is enough to kill 115 million Americans. 115 million Americans. Cops are getting after it. The FBI has arrested 19,000 people this year alone. Thanks to President Trump's administrations, that's double than where we were this time last year. And we have also arrested 1,600 people who have committed violent acts against children. 270 of them are human traffickers of children. Mr. President, this is what happens when you have great leadership at the Attorney General with Pam Bondi. Your administration's priority of protecting the homeland and protecting American citizens and protecting our children, and the murder rates are plummeting. We are now able to report that the murder rate is on track to be the lowest in U.S. history, in modern recorded U.S. history, thanks to this team behind me and President Trump's priorities. And how do we do it? And what are we going to bring to D.C.? What we did in Northern Virginia, thanks to Terry Cole and Governor Youngkin and the team, we stood up a task force out in my Northern Virginia field office, and we said, let's let good cops be cops. Let's get them the intelligence and what they need, and let's get the red tape out of their way, and let's get DOJ partnered up with us to bring great prosecutions. And that's exactly what we did. In 1 month, we arrested 545 violent felons, 545 in the state of Virginia, thanks to Governor Youngkin's partnership. And that simplicity in law enforcement is what's coming to Washington, D.C. When you let good cops be cops, when you give them the intel they need, when you work with our Homeland Security Task Force, when you work with Terry and Gaddy and I go way back to Miami, these guys are great leaders of the respective departments and law enforcement capacities. And when you have the DOJ and President Trump driving behind this mission, we are going to clean up Washington, D.C., and we're going to do it the right way, the lawful way, and we're going to make sure Washington, D.C. is safe again. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Attorney General.
Thank you very much.
That's awesome. Let good cops be cops. And that has kind of been the theme of this new FBI. And people don't like it. All the wrong people don't like it. And that's the ex-government officials who have penned a letter blasting Kash Patel's FBI purge. The Steady State Group, that's what they call themselves, accuses Patel and Bongino of dismantling FBI independence. A group of former FBI intelligence, diplomatic, and national security officials released a letter blasting FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino for firing several bureau agents, saying they were targeted for not being loyal to President Trump. The group, which dubs itself the Steady State, claims agents Brian Driscoll, Michael Feinberg, and Walter Giardina were fired as part of a campaign to dismantle the FBI's long-standing independence, while also setting it up as a tool of political loyalty. The Steady State also claimed the agents were canned because they were not loyal to the President Trump, before accusing the administration of appointing Patel and Bongino to powerful roles, despite not having resumes that meet the basic standards to lead the world's premier law enforcement agency. You know, it's hard to trust the statistics that are out there on any of this stuff, but I do actually wonder what crime, like if what Kash Patel is saying about the crime rate and everything coming down and how it was compared to previous people, like who gives a shit about the resumes? What about the job performance? And if what they're saying is true and things are actually getting better, which I assume they are, these people are idiots to have any complaints on this. This is the establishment, thinking and talking point. Like, you need to have a degree, you need to have the right resume, you need to do all these things. You need to fit within the confines of our system, regardless of job performance. As long as you fit within our system and the requirements that we present, then you can work with us. Otherwise it's political. No, the political way never worked, and it hasn't worked, and it's been corrupted, and that's proven. And we're getting more proof of that by the day with the Rico Grande case. This is what they continue to say. It's not about reform, it's about control. The aim, it seems, is to transform the FBI from a respected, constitutionally grounded investigative service into a personal enforcement arm of the political figure. We have seen these dynamics abroad, leaders who demand loyalty from security services, not to the law, but to themselves. These regimes do not end well. I want to see, I tried saving an article and it's not finished yet, but there's this weird story floating around or something about Kash Patel's pilot. I'm trying to get a full understanding of what is actually going on. I think there's even mention in here too. Yeah, I'm gonna wait and see if this thing. It's an archive link. I'm waiting to get saved, so we'll come back around to that. In the meantime, though, one of the judges we've been waiting on to unseal the Maxwell grand jury materials has rejected the DOJ's request, and it was a 31-page ruling. Here's some details. Yeah. Judge rejects unsealing Ghislaine Maxwell grand jury transcripts. A federal judge in New York on Monday rejected a request by the Justice Department to unseal grand jury transcripts related to the criminal investigation of Ghislaine Maxwell, the convicted procurer of notorious sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Judge Paul Engelmeyer. Why does that name sound familiar? Was he involved in like another big case or something? Hold for process. I want to see if there's anything here I'm missing. He led the prosecution of Lawrence Cusack, who created and sold the $7 million worth of forged documents, claiming that President John F. Kennedy paid hush money to conceal a supposed affair with Marilyn Monroe. In 2001, Wall Street Journal op-ed, he discussed the challenges prosecutors investigating President Bill Clinton's pardons of Mark Rich and others faced. He was nominated by Obama, no surprise there. Yeah, I guess I don't see anything crazy. Bernie Madoff? Oh, he oversaw, okay. Bernie Madoff decision. Oh, he also did the Muskogee FOIA litigation. Interesting. So I was trying to see if there's anything else specifically related to. Oh, this is what it was. I bet. On February 7th, Engelmeyer granted a temporary injunction sought by New York Attorney General Letitia James and 17 other state attorneys, blocking any further access by DOJ to the Treasury Department's payment system. That's what it was. Okay. Anyway, back to this article here. In his ruling, he scoffed at the Justice Department's rationale for wanting the transcripts unsealed. So this is a deep state guy, by the way. Like, obviously, like if he's fighting against DOJ and what they were doing and some of these other cases appointed by Obama, he's not there for the interest of transparency. He is there to protect the regime. Its entire premise that the Maxwell grand jury materials would bring to light meaningful new information about Epstein and Maxwell's crimes or the government's investigation into them is demonstrably false, Engelmeyer wrote in his decision in U.S. District Court in Manhattan. Engelmeyer said the Justice Department was being disingenuous in making that argument for disclosure. That's kind of a wild thing to say. The Justice Department's request before another federal judge, let me back up here. A federal judge in Florida on July 23rd denied the department's request to unseal grand jury transcripts about a probe of Epstein in that state by federal prosecutors in the mid-2000s. The Justice Department's request before another judge in Manhattan to unseal grand jury transcripts related to Epstein's later indictment, there is still pending. Engelmeyer also said that none of the arguments that the Justice Department cited for unsealing the transcripts met one of the exceptions authorizing the disclosure of grand jury materials allowed by the Federal Appeals Court circuit that includes New York. The judge also suggests that the department's request was more about public relations than about having previously unknown information about Epstein and Maxwell unsealed for the first time. And that's an interesting thing for him to say, because that's almost like a leftist mainstream. It's not even almost. It is a leftist mainstream talking point that a lot of the things that Trump has been trying to do has been to distract from his handling of the Epstein files. Like the Rico Grande case is just his way of distracting from the Epstein stuff. And so calling it more of a public relations thing is a little too close to the liberal talking point here. The court's review confirmed that unsealing the grand jury materials would not reveal new information of any consequence. Contrary to the government's depiction, the Maxwell grand jury testimony is not a matter of significance, historical, or public interest. Far from it, it consists of garden variety summary testimony by two law enforcement agents. And this is the part that it kind of sucks, but this is exactly what the Trump administration has been saying. It's what Kash Patel's been saying. It's what Bongino been saying. Trump himself. Todd Blanche, Pam Bondi. Like, there's nothing really new in there. They're trying to get it out to show people. But, yeah. Kind of just is what it is. Oh, Ash sent something. Ash sent this article along. Let me check it out. Oh, man, I got to get the archive linked here. Hold for processing. And apologies for Ash totally disrupting my flow. But this is what she sent. Cartels may be able to target witnesses after major court hack. Okay, yeah. That's notable. This goes back to the story I did a little bit ago. Latin American drug cartels are feared to be among those that obtain sensitive court data due to a sweeping breach of the federal judiciary's case filing system, raising concern that the groups will now be able to target cooperating witness involved in criminal trials against them. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a concern. Any of these bad actors getting access to court information like this. And it makes you wonder too, like, is the sealed stuff, like some of the bigger Rico Grande stuff going on, is any of that, like grand jury stuff, was that part of this hack? Could they get access to kind of get an idea of where things are going with that case? Man, I don't know why this thing is loading. I wanted to read that Cash Patel story, but not going anywhere. I'm just going to read the headline here because I haven't clicked into this. This is a new update. DC mayor and police weren't aware of Trump's plans for federal control. Hasn't Trump been basically hinting at this for a week, 2 weeks? How could they not be aware that something like this was coming? Seems a little absurd. Okay, let's talk a couple other things that came out of this meeting. Trump did say, let me find it. Here's a little thing about the reclassification of marijuana.
Any other questions, sir? There's reporting that the administration is going to reclassify marijuana. Would that send mixed messages that if marijuana is okay, some drugs are okay, but we're trying to clean up crime? How do they go hand in hand?
We're only looking at that. That's early, but somebody reported it, which is fine. We're looking at it. Some people like it. Some people hate it. Some people hate the whole concept of marijuana because if it does bad for the children, it does bad for people that are older than children. But we're looking at reclassification, and we'll make a determination over the next few weeks. And that determination hopefully will be the right one. It's a very complicated subject, the subject of marijuana. I've heard great things having to do with medical, and I've had bad things having to do with just about everything else. But medical and, for pain and various things, I've heard some pretty good things. But for other things, I've heard some pretty bad things. The other part of your question,
Any other questions, sir?
So that's coming. We've kind of talked about that a couple times now. Big news this week, though, is obviously on Friday, Trump is scheduled to meet with Putin in Alaska for a meeting, and some interesting things going on here kind of surrounding this narrative. So first of all, Zelensky and Modi held a call to discuss Ukraine peace efforts amid U.S. tariffs on India. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky on Monday said he had spoken with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, urging India to back Kyiv's peace initiative as the war in Ukraine enters its fourth year. The conversation comes as India faces steep U.S. tariffs over its purchase of Russian oil. It is important that India is supporting our peace efforts and shares the position that everything concerning Ukraine must be decided with Ukraine's participation. Other formats will not deliver results, Zelensky said in a statement. He also called for sanctions to limit Russia's energy exports, particularly oil, to reduce Moscow's capacity to fund the conflict. So this is the line right here that I think is most important. Ukraine must be decided with Ukraine's participation. On Wednesday, Trump will be holding a call or joining a call that is being put forth by European leaders. I think, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz is the one who's convening this. And it's a call to discuss how he's going to handle the talks on Friday. U.S. President Donald Trump will join European leaders, including Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, for an emergency virtual summit on Wednesday. The call, organized by German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, comes ahead of the Friday's summit in Alaska between Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin on the war in Ukraine. The virtual summit will focus on pressure options against Russia, questions about Ukrainian territory seized by Russia, security guarantees for Kyiv, and the sequencing of potential peace talks, a German government spokesperson told Politico. Merz and other European leaders demand that Putin first agrees to a ceasefire before any peace talks or land swaps between Moscow and Kyiv can take place. They've also made clear that any potential territorial exchanges must be balanced and agreed with Kyiv, and that Ukraine should receive firm security guarantees to protect it from further aggression. I think they're going to try to be like, well, we need Ukraine to be part of NATO. But that's going to be one of Putin's absolutely not agreements, right? He's not going to let them into NATO. But again, there's this theme of going back months, back to February, back when there was first initial talks of like some sort of peace discussion between Trump and Putin, or at least Trump's, high level negotiators going to meet with Russia's high level negotiators. They weren't going to invite Zelensky, and Zelensky made the rounds, and he was all upset, big sad, big mad, complaining that like, you can't decide on stuff for me. You can't do that. Well, maybe we can. Maybe we can. Here's what he said this morning.
And I get along with Zelensky, but, I disagree with what he's done. Very, very severely disagree. This is a war that should have never happened, wouldn't have happened. But I'll be...
Oh, that's not the one I wanted. I thought there was this one.
A little bothered by the fact that Zelensky was saying, well, I have to get constitutional approval. I mean, he's got approval to go into war and kill everybody, but he needs approval to do a land swap, because there'll be some land swapping going on. I know that through Russia and through conversations with everybody. A little...
Basically saying like, he's like, oh, we need approval now from Ukraine. No, we don't. Didn't need our approval to go to war. Now you need our approval to end it? Give me a break. But it's possible that he comes to the meeting. I think I saw an article. See if I can find it. What the heck? Where's it at? I know I pulled it up. Come on. Okay, here we go. Trump says Zelensky could go to meeting with Putin, but he wasn't part of it. President Donald Trump said Monday that Ukrainian President Zelensky could attend his summit with Russian leader Vladimir Putin in Alaska on Friday, but expressed skepticism that it would make a difference in reaching a peace deal. So basically saying, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, what does that even mean? Putin is supposedly one side of this war. Ukraine is supposedly this other side of the war, Russia, Ukraine, Putin, Zelensky. And Trump is saying, we're going to negotiate the end of this war, but it literally doesn't matter if the leader of one side is there. It's hysterical on its face. I mean, we obviously believe there's bigger things going on behind the scenes, but the peace deal that they're going to get, it won't matter what Zelensky says. I wouldn't be surprised if he's not even there at the end to sign it. That's something that Putin and Trump had said in the past, months ago, that they'll hold a ceasefire, they'll hold elections, and then they'll sign the actual peace agreement. I mean, this is what Trump said. He wasn't part of it. I would say he could go, but he's been to a lot of meetings. He's been there for 3.5 years. Nothing happened, Trump told reporters at the White House. We're going to have a meeting with Vladimir Putin, and at the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made. How will you know that? A reporter pressed. Because that's what I do. I make deals. I actually have that clip right here.
He wasn't a part of it. I would say he could go, but he's gone to a lot of meetings. He's been there for 3.5 years. Nothing happened.
And what is the definition?
I mean, do you want somebody that's been doing this for 3.5 years? What's the definition of a good deal? I'll tell you after I hear what the deal is, because there could be many definitions. You're talking about a very large and complex situation. Now, I tell you, the war that I just settled with Azerbaijan and with, as you know, and Armenia was almost as complex as this one, having to do with routes, trade.
Meeting on Friday with Vladimir Putin.
Well, we're going to have a meeting with Vladimir Putin, and at the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made.
How will you know that?
Because that's what I do. I make deals.
So good. So good. And then the president later added that a meeting between Putin and Zelensky would be necessary. Ultimately, I'm going to put the two of them in a room. I'll be there or I won't be there. and I think it'll get solved, Trump said. The president said that there could be many definitions of a good deal, but he also seemed to lower expectations ahead of Friday's summit. I expect to have a meeting with Putin that I think it'll be good, but it might be bad, Trump said. It's literally like playing good cop and bad cop in his press conference with these topics. It's super, super interesting. But I'm curious to see what happens because, you know, we've been waiting for this one. This is like the big one, the peace one. Trump the peacemaker, this war that never should have happened, but we all know Trump walked away, and this war could only happen with Trump out of office. It had to happen with Trump out of office. Putin went in there, denazified Ukraine, and now it's kind of been at a stalemate for a long time. I mean, we're told things are happening, whatever, but it's essentially been at a stalemate. I don't believe any of the numbers coming out of that country or either side for the number of casualties. So I don't know. I think whatever deal they inevitably come to is going to be what was agreed to well before probably Trump even left office. Like if you believe in the bigger things going on behind the scenes, especially with this one, the Sovereign Alliance talk, this is going to conclude in a preordained fashion. But the timing of when that concludes could be anything. It might be after Friday, might come away from there. Maybe they need a narrative of more conflict, further conflict. What if it doesn't go well? What if they come out of it and we're told like both sides are now repositioning their nuclear subs to whatever, scare event necessary type stuff? Who knows? But I'm curious to see. And I'm curious to see if Zelensky attends. Put him in like a high chair next to these two like big thrones of Putin and Trump when they discuss. Oh, what else do I got for you guys? I don't think there's anything else here from Trump's Truth Social. I might not have any more. Oh, here's a meeting Trump is doing today. This is kind of interesting. Last week, I was talking about how Trump said that the CEO of Intel like needs to be replaced because he's basically a Chinese asset. Well, today, that Intel CEO is coming to the White House to meet with President Trump. CEO Lip Bu Tan, terribly unfortunate name, will meet President Trump on Monday to address concerns over his $200 million investments in Chinese firms, some linked to the military, following Trump's call for his resignation, per the Wall Street Journal. Tan aims to emphasize Intel's role in U.S. national security and propose government collaboration as Intel's stock rises nearly 2% from pre-market on Monday. This isn't notable, though. So President Trump called him out for his investments in Chinese firms linked to the military, and he's coming to talk about Intel's role in U.S. national security. That's why Trump is taking issue with this whole thing. Like, you guys want a role in national security, you may have a role in national security, but here's your CEO investing in Chinese firms, which we do not allow. Trump issued a series of executive orders on this in his first term. Some of them were slightly changed by Biden. I've talked about that in my series. But for the most part, that's still like not a kosher thing for people to be doing and not allowed. So it's just interesting the way that they're phrasing this is that he's coming to emphasize Intel's role. Okay, do that, emphasize it, but that's the entire reason why you should not be the CEO of this company. The semiconductor industry, a linchpin of global technology and national security, is at the center of a high-stakes controversy. Yeah, we talked about this last week. So I'm curious to see what comes out of that meeting, if Trump doubles down or if he like does his cordial, I just met with Lip Bu Tan, such a good guy, but man, you know, he needs to change some things, and I think he will. Well, we'll see. I'm curious to see what he says. I got this video from CNN telling Bernie Sanders he's admired almost as much as Pope Leo.
Something that I'm sure you have seen, a Gallup poll. Did you see this Gallup poll?
Yep.
And what the Gallup poll found was that you are one of the most widely admired Americans. And I believe you're only second to the Pope.
You want me to declare my candidacy for Pope? Is that what you're
I
asking?
don't think that you're eligible for a lot of reasons.
Then I won't do that.
I watched you tonight. I've watched you for a very, very long time. You're obviously still full of vigor and intensity for the things that you're passionate about and have been for decades. Is there another presidential run in you?
Oh, God. Let's not worry about that. I am going to be 84 years of age next month, as a matter of fact. So I think that speaks for itself.
Sounds like a no. It is weird that they're even floating that question to him. Like, are they trying to put out feelers for who's going to be a potential Democratic candidate? Because I don't think they have many good options. They don't have any good options. I would say Newsome is probably the most likely of potential candidates. For them, it's all about who they can pass off as legitimately winning an election. And they're going to have to steal it for him, obviously, like just like they did with Biden. But it's who can they pass off as like, oh yeah, he could have won. He can formulate a sentence. He's polished. Here's a whole list of reasons why we definitely didn't steal this election. He just legitimately won. But maybe they don't even know who to go with. It's just weird. Why would CNN even bother? But with that, I think that's all I have for today for you guys. So I will be back tonight on Baseless Conspiracies. I will also be back tomorrow here on the show at 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on Badlands. I'm not sure what I'm going to do Wednesday yet. I'm potentially going to have somebody doing a filling in for me, but I won't be able to do the show live because I will be for sure driving down to Deadwood at that time. It's just not going to be possible. Thursday, I'm not sure yet either. It's just a weird week, guys. With Gart weeks are always weird. I always do my show when I can, but I'll do my best. And I'll keep you posted. So make sure you stay tuned, follow on socials. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up. Let me check if we got any Badlands boosts. I don't see any. Yeah, I don't see any new ones. Do have a couple rants here. There's 2 rants. It looks like the Liberty Line. This is the explosion at the steel plant, which I already covered. And then Rocky Top Apologist to the chat, checking out why Chrome's over on the other channel, more racially diverse over there. Yes, by definition, that show is more racially diverse than this show, if that is what you're into and looking for. But yeah, we'll raid that channel here after this, and then I'm going to play a quick little teaser video for something that we're launching this week. Very excited about something that's been in the work for many months now, and we'll be announcing on, I believe, Friday, the 15th. Yeah, and then we'll get you out of here. So hit the thumbs up. Thank you, everybody, and I'll see you tonight on Baseless Conspiracies.
Real good.
Why they stopping me?